And welcome back. Thank you for joining us. You're watching Open, and I'm the Dr. Bob Lee from 107.5 WBLS. Our next guest is a mixed media artist who joins us to highlight how she is using immersive street pop inspired art installations to encapsulate the human experience. And she's here with us today. Please welcome to the show, Amelia C. Williams. Welcome, welcome,
Hi.
welcome. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for
You-
having me.
You're doing your thing out there, huh?
I am.
Now,
Yeah.
how did you get into it?
Well, I grew up around artists. My grandmother was an artist, and most of the people in my family are artists on
Uh-huh.
my mom's side. And I grew up in Westchester, New York, on my grandparents' property. And they actually owned 4 cottages on this property. So all of my neighbors were also artists. So, like, when I say I was surrounded by art all the time, it was like very literal. So I think I just like absorbed creativity just by osmosis growing up. And that was
Uh-huh.
just like the way that I naturally expressed myself. And I sat and learned how to paint when I was really young with my mom, with my grandmother, and then did a lot of creative
Mhm.
projects with my mom growing up. But I didn't get into painting until much more recently because I felt I was I would compare myself to them.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel connected with the type of painting that they did necessarily. And I didn't feel like I was as good. And so I ended up working in the fashion industry for a really long time and felt that that was like more of the route for me to take creatively.
Yeah.
And once I got there, I realized that it took many years to realize that the fashion industry was not for me, and it's very toxic and was not that creative.
Yeah.
And when I was in LA for about 10 years. And so when I landed back in New York, I decided to do everything the opposite of what I've been doing and just picked up a paintbrush and didn't really think about it. And just kind of let my emotion spill on canvas, and it just felt really good. So I just kept doing
Hey,
more
that's
and
how
more
you
and
do.
more of it.
Put your emotions on canvas.
Yeah.
I see that in your bio it says something about elements of emo culture from the early 2000s
Yeah.
and capturing
Yeah.
the innocence and passion of the first love
Yeah.
with illustrated depictions of chaotic, obsessive attachments fueled by trauma, anxiety, and
Yep.
depression.
That's
Talk
it.
about that. Just take it out, all out and throw it on the paper.
Yeah.
Let's get
Yeah.
it all out.
Yeah, a lot of it. So, like I said, a lot of it started out with just kind of expressing my emotion on the
Yeah.
canvas. And then I started to kind of pay a little more attention
Uh-huh.
to what I was doing and really start to like kind of visualize, okay, where do I want to take this? Because I really
Ah.
want this to turn into more of a message, not necessarily just about my experience, but I want people to connect with it. And yeah, I grew up in the early 2000s in high school. I listened to a lot of pop punk and like emo rock and culture, and it was very like
Yeah, yeah.
it was depressing, but it was very of the time, and it was very angsty and teenagery. But as I got older, I, have gone through a lot of mental health issues myself, and I've been in therapy forever, and I love it. And turning to art as a form of therapy for myself has been
Yeah.
life
I
changing.
mean, you can
And
talk to people, but then you can take it out of your head and put it on the
yeah,
canvas.
exactly. I think like
Yeah.
learning how to release everything that's stuck inside of you in the healthiest way possible is like important for everyone. And I think
Hmm.
everyone is creative in their own right and in many different ways. And I think we're really conditioned to kind of like repress a lot of that. And like,
Yeah.
especially like I was saying, I didn't feel like I connected with a lot of art when I was younger. And even in high school, they wouldn't let me into the advanced art programs because I was not like the perfect student.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to express myself that way for so many years. And I was so repressed. And then when I started to do it, I felt like lighter and lighter and lighter because I felt like 30 years of like trauma and depression and anxiety had been like, shoved down in my body.
Yeah.
And finally being able to get that out and have a voice in the way that felt the most comfortable for me and most natural was, it was just life
Yeah.
changing.
Amelia, explain how the confusion was related to your racial identity.
So I'm biracial. I'm mixed race.
Uh-huh.
I grew up in my mom's white. I grew up with my mom. My grandparents were white, whose property I grew up on. So I grew up in Cortland Manor in Westchester, which is a predominantly white area. And so I just had a struggle. I didn't really grow up with the Black side of my family at that time, especially during my formative years. So I, looking into media and looking at my surroundings in a very odd way, I kind of just felt like I was living the white experience. And when I turned 30, I started to really like going through therapy and started to examine like a lot of my experiences and realizing like, oh my God, like I'm not a white girl, like I'm biracial and the world doesn't see me the way, not that I saw myself that way, but just because that was the environment. It
Did
was
black people call you white and white people call you black?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, well, yeah. Well, white people
Or
actually,
they came to you speaking Spanish?
most, say that again.
They came up to you speaking Spanish.
I had people come up to me speaking Spanish for sure. And I mean, in college, a lot of people called me white girl. Like that was my nickname.
Yeah.
And like, I would laugh it off, but it took years to really realize how much that actually weighed on me. And just kind of the long-term effects that it has where your like identity is almost being told who you are instead of like being able to be myself and having that comfortable versus like, I felt like I was kind of like molding myself to make everyone else around me comfortable. And so when I stopped doing that, it definitely shifted my life and it was very difficult. But again, that's a lot of experiences.
But Amelia, you're beautiful just the way you are.
Oh, thank you.
Look, if this will help you out a little bit, I'm black and Italian. I look Puerto Rican or Dominican, and my last name is Lee. Whoa.
Yeah. I could see that. Yeah.
It doesn't bother me anymore. I just get in the mix with the multitudes, and I can mix them with any race, any religion, any tradition.
Exactly. And I think there's a superpower. I mean, I've been able to kind of like go in and out of any room really.
Yes.
Really observe. I mean, especially I do a lot of writing too, and I will eventually write about all of these experiences. But just being able to be an observer of like white environments has been very interesting because a lot of people around me kind of would forget that I was even part Black and would say a lot of things that I think they would only say around white people normally. And so I've had a very specific view into this world that is difficult and but also interesting because I've seen a lot of the reality of
of course you're gonna see it. It's there. But you are a unique person because you can get in the mix with just about any.
And I've used that. I've been very fortunate and lucky with a lot of my experiences and careers, and I've been using all of it in a positive way to be able to get my foot into the door.
What's next for Amelia?
So I have an art show January 18th in Kingston. It's a pop-up show. It's under the collection of the Love Bugs, which is all about the different mental health issues that can affect you and then over time affect your relationships because of it. And it's mostly about the state of limerence. So it's actually about your uncontrollable addiction to love that a lot of us feel in the beginning of dating. And then also when you're going through the breakup, it's that withdrawal, and it's the withdrawal of oxytocin. So it's a lot of just visuals about that. So my show is going to feature a lot of that work. And then it's also going to highlight a lot of some new work that I'm working on under the collection of It Was All a Dream. And it's going to be talking just a lot more about my personal experiences in America and just like and my perspective and what I see around me. So it'll be at Camp Kingston, January 18th in upstate New York.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
And you're going to post that up everywhere?
Yeah, that'll be on my website, ameliacwilliams.com, or my Instagram, ameliacwilliams_.
There you go. Hey, listen, thank you for joining us and thank you for sharing. Remember, get it all out of the head, put it on canvas, put it in lyrics, just talk to people and keep yourself that unique person that you're here to be.
Thank you. Yes, everyone
Follow your purpose-driven life.
Exactly.
Find out what that is and stick with it, because when you stick with something long enough, something always happens. But make sure you keep it positive.
I agree with
What's
that.
your website again?
AmeliaCWilliams.com. So AmeliaCWilliams.com.
We love you. Thank you so much. Join us again, okay?
Yes, thank you so much.
And keep smiling. I like that pretty smile.
Thanks.
All right. We'll take a break. I've got more coming up next on Open.